I'm a linguist who's been studying Kamala Harris's speech patterns since 2019, and I want to tell you about a few things that I observed in her debate performance tonight. Every time that I've heard her speak this presidential election cycle, she sounded more and more traditionally presidential. There's a few particular moments that stood out to my ear as a linguist who's been studying her for a while. The first one is here, where she talks about Trump on the economy.
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America.
And it's interesting that she adapts a sort of classic line from Barack Obama.
So let me be clear. Let me be clear.
She changes it to "let's be clear."
Well, let's be clear, and let's be clear. So let's be clear about that.
The second was when Trump made a really shocking, offensive, false statement about immigrants eating pets. This is the only time where Harris sort of breaks character and calls him out on this.
You talk about extreme.
When she says talk about extreme, she kind of laughs and then goes on to discuss how she has been endorsed by all of these law enforcement figures.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans.
Sort of countering the narrative that he's put forth there. The fact that all she does is sort of say, whoa, that's pretty extreme, it's so ridiculous that it's laughable, allows her to sort of maintain control in the debate setting, even though this is something that he's trying to put on his own terms. It's an effective rhetorical strategy for turning his own argument back around on him. As she steps more into the role of power, she is sounding more like a recognizable politician to us. She's getting more polished. Finally, there's one big similarity between what I saw her do in 2019, 2020, and what I saw her do tonight. When she talks about personal issues, she's more likely to use a charismatic style that has features that we would associate with African American English, particularly in her tone of voice.
There is not a black man I know, be he a relative, a friend, or a coworker, who has not been the subject of some form of profiling or discrimination.
This right here is a spectrogram that shows the movement of her pitch on the blue line here as she goes through the phrases. With the blue line, we can watch her pitch move up and down with the more extreme pitch movements on salient words. And the type of tone that she uses here is one that we see, particularly for African American speakers, when they're trying to make a pretty salient point.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
In the end, Kamala Harris always sounds like herself, but in this debate, we really see her take a tone that is more herself in the model of a presidential speaker.